Hey, as promised, we're going to go ahead and get into integers now. And an integer is kind of a shorthand term or generically used term for a number variable. In this case, we could think of this also as being a box that instead of holding text is going to go ahead and hold a number. And it's important to note starting off that there are a number of different ways that you can represent numbers, bad pun, in .NET and in many other programming languages. But for our purposes today, we're going to go ahead and use int for everything. And if we want to flip over back to our Visual Studio instance, and I wanted to call this out quickly, is that you can go ahead and create a number of projects for each one of these sections if you want to. So you could create like a new solution or project, excuse me, for the string variables, or one for the number variables. Or you can just go ahead and reuse what you already have and not create a new project. And that's what I've done here. It's kind of up to you what you want to do. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into this. So we'll represent numbers as a box of type int. Now, everything else works the same about this. So we can do, let's see, int first number equals 42. So we have, again, the type of the box right here, which is an int. We have the label that's on the box, which is first number. The equal sign, which means we're assigning something to that, right? And finally, we have the number itself. Pretty standard stuff. Very common usage. Nothing outstanding about that. Again, the creation of that box and the thing that goes in it is going to be the same as what you do with strings. Now, a little bit different thing right here, and this is the fact that this is going to be a number, correct? And so we can look at this a little more closely. So if we go first number dot, and we have a number of different things that we could do on this, but you notice it's not as full featured as what a string is. And this is because the things that we would do with a number or an integer, they're going to be more limited in what's actually available on that variable itself. There's all kinds of things you could do with it outside of that. It's just that there's fewer options available on that. So again, we'll have first number equals 42. And I want to go right to a spoiler alert right here, which is if we have a number variable, what can happen is that can be converted automatically to a text variable or string in usage and functions where it needs to be used. So in other words, there's places that you could put a string in .NET, and most of the time .NET can take a number and convert it to a string. So let's just go ahead and do this real quickly. This is an automatic way of doing it. So I'll take first number. We'll go ahead and paste that variable name into here. And you'll notice we don't get like a red squiggly or anything right here, right? So that means that .NET, well, C# actually knows how to convert this number variable over to a string automatically. Now, one important thing about this is if you went ahead and reused this variable down here, it would still be a number. So what's happening here is that this is something called pass by value. In .NET and many other languages, when you pass a parameter to a function, the function will convert that variable to something that it can use. So in other words, WriteLine is always expecting a text variable, or again, think of our box analogy as being a box as holding a string. So if it can take this and convert it to something it can use, when that's happening, that conversion will only matter within that function itself. So again, like if we want to go ahead and like reference first number down here, we could do this very simply. I'll show you. So let's do, we'll keep with the rules of, so we'll do int second number equals first number. And we can see right here that second number is still going to be type of integer if we look next to local variable. Again, that int is just the same as what you're seeing right here. We have the equal statement, which means that we're assigning that value, and the value that's being assigned is first number right here, right? So first number up here is the integer. It's being passed into this function where the function will change it to what it needs. And then we could come down here and we could see second number is still an int based on the fact that first number is an int. And this is really important much of the time because what happens is something called casting. And so casting is something we'll get into a little bit later, but I want to introduce it now so this isn't confusing. And casting means that we take a particular type of value or box and we change it around to another type. And so this means that we could take a integer variable, we could change it to a string through what's called casting. And there's a couple of different kinds of casting themselves. There's basic casting and there's explicit casting. And right now, it's probably not really necessary to know the differences between the two. Just keep in mind that you can change one variable type to another. And we'll show a couple examples of that probably in the next video. But for now, we have first number. We're writing it out. And so we'll go ahead and run this. And if you think about the fact that we're changing first number to a string, but only in this function, you can imagine that we'll probably see 42 pop up our console, right? That's expected behavior. And we can do a couple other things with this as well. So we could do the value is, and this might throw you off for a second because we have this plus sign right here, right? And we could think of number boxes is, yeah, it makes sense logically that we could type out one plus another will give us something. But this is a little bit flaky because we have the value is, then we have the number. So we're taking a string and we're combining it with a number, right? And again, all that's happening here is that .NET is casting the value of first number and combining it with this string we have right here. So we'll click enter to code again, run it, and we have the value is 42. This is pretty straightforward. It's something you see a lot in coding, particularly things that are user-facing, because, you know, a person is going to be able to make sense of a number more often if it's, you know, has some context with it. You know, we always want to use like something that will let people know what that particular number is representing, right? You don't want to throw up a number on the screen and hope they know what it is. So that's like a little bit of a basic thing here about numbers. One other thing I want to briefly cover, and this is a more advanced thing that probably, again, 99% of the time you won't really mess with. At least not like more basic coding. But so each value or each variable type for numbers in .NET, and again in most of the programming languages, can vary in size. And so in .NET, an int stands for what's called int32, maybe int64 now, but it can hold a maximum number size of 2 billion. Okay, so what we can do here is, you know, simply showing this. We'll go ahead and do let's see, let's try this. So we'll write that line out again, and let's see, the maximum size is first number dot, let's see, so now it's a type of int. This is not actually available in the number itself, so we'll have to use the variable type. But we'll put max value right here. And we don't really care about this executing the code, so I will show you a further trick. And this is called commenting code. And so commenting code basically means that we just put a marker in front of that line of code. And that lets us know that that code's not going to run, but it also lets the .NET compiler know to totally skip over it. And so anytime that you have code that is in your program someplace or you're not using, but you may want to use it later, you always want to go ahead and comment it out just to be on the safe side to see if it doesn't cause any side effects. And honestly, if it's something you're not going to use and you know you're not going to need it and nobody needs to look at it, go ahead and delete it. Yeah, I've seen plenty of code where people have commented stuff out, but they've never gone back and actually erased it. And so if you're looking over your code, like, what does this mean? You know, you have like 500 lines that are commented out, and you're thinking, is it important? You know, was this the way it's supposed to originally work? And so on, stuff like that. Just a bad habit, you know. So anyway, a single line comment in C# is 2 forward slashes like this. And you'll notice it turns a different color right there, and that just simply lets us know that that's commented out. We're not going to use it. Okay, so we'll click enter code again. And we'll see the maximum size is 2 billion roughly. Pretty big number, but depending on what you're working with, you can exceed that. So let's look at a couple other types right here. Let's see, we'll backspace that. We have a variable type called long, which stands for long int. We'll run this, and yeah, it's a whole lot bigger, you know. So if you're looking to, represent, I don't know, the national debt, the number of atoms in the universe, something like that, it's probably going to be more appropriate to use a long int, although obviously with the number of atoms in the universe, it's going to be a bit bigger than that. Let's see, we also have short. So we're in short, and we'll see, 3267 is our maximum size. And I think we have bit. I don't remember what the other one is, but we'll stay with short. Short, int, and long. Those are generally going to be the ones that you would typically use. Most often you only use int. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to go more into that. But let's see. So kind of what we covered here is just a little bit of how we can define a number box and what we could put in it. And one last thing I want to show you here, speaking of casting, so we'll go ahead actually and comment this back in. Show you one other thing right here. And so most variables values will come with a function called toString, and that will give us what's the string representation of what that is. In other words, like, if you have a number and it could be cast to a string, doing toString will give us that value. So let's do this. We'll do string first number string value equals first number to string. Oopsie. Let's go here, and we can see that we have again the syntax for a function. So this is our value, which is first number. We're going to call toString, which is a function. And if we hover over this right here, we look next to the purple box, which indicates the data type. It's saying string, right? And this is just simply because we're calling this function, which will give us the string representation of this right here. And so if we go ahead and do this, and I should probably fix my typo right there. So we'll do this. Come down here. And let's see, the number string value is this. Hit the button. We can see it's 42 again, right? And all this is doing is that we're taking that value and changing it around to a string. And it's important to note this is actually something that's fairly common in coding, where you'll have something that's a integer value, and you need to take that value and work with it as a text string. And Obviously there could be some traps and pitfalls with that, but the other important thing to remember is that if you could use that value as a string without change that value, keep your code a little bit cleaner, right? So right here we have the bucket box, which is holding the first number variable is being assigned to 42, right? But if I'm putting a line in like this, this is already available on that integer. It could be implicitly used by that or by .NET. And so when we're putting in extra code like this right here, it is just adding more to what we need to look at and debug or potentially understand if we're trying to maintain that code. So in this case, we could always use this value just as it is. And we'll know that this is always going to be an int. So we can do this, for example, right here. So we use var, which automatically take the box or variable type and whatever it's being assigned to. So we'll do, let's already pop up a second number. You have to love, what should I say, .NET's or Visual Studio's little helpers right there. Interestingly, it comes up with 43 too. So that must be a newer feature. They're starting to put some AI tools into Visual Studio. That may be something that's doing that. Okay, so we'll do second number equals, or var second number equals first number. And so you see first number is still an int, and second number is an int as well. So even after we've taken first number and run it through a function which will take that value and convert it to a string, it is still remaining the type of value it originally was. Very important. It's also very important to know sometimes when the value of or the type of variable can change, or the value of that variable can change based on what's happening in your code. It's a little bit more of an advanced topic, once we get to talking about variables and classes and stuff like that, we'll cover that. And again, until next time, when we start covering more advanced operations with numbers.